Hi again, everybody. Welcome into another edition. This is Cross Functionality, the show, the podcast connecting coaching, baseball, softball, male, female, hosted by former college baseball and softball players. Hey, thanks for joining us on the audio side, Apple, Google, Spotify. We're also on iHeart and TuneIn, Pandora as well. So subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Leave a review. We'd appreciate that. And you can watch the show too on YouTube on the Softball Strength Academy YouTube page. All right, episode 32 today. Gizmos and gadgets in hitting surrounding baseball and softball. So let me bring in my friend and co-host, softball national champion at the University of Alabama and current day renowned coach, Cassie Reilly-Boccia. What's up, champ?
Thanks, Jim. All is well. How about you?
I'm going to sing you a new open. I've been a little lackluster the last few weeks with my opening for both you and Jake on the Lab Epstein Hitting podcast, so I decided to add a little soundtrack this week.
Nice. Very nice.
This is an exciting topic, gizmos and gadgets in hitting. You said something last week, by the way, at the end of the episode 31, that made me laugh. I listened back to that episode during the week and made me laugh at what you said when you talked about how all this technology, people are forgetting one thing, that it costs a lot of money. All this technology we're going to talk about today for coaches and academies and for teams and college teams, it costs a lot of money. It's not as easy as just snap of the fingers and saying, hey, I want that piece of technology.
Right. And that's something you'll always have to weigh is cost and the reward, right? What is this going to benefit myself as a coach, my athletes, enough to justify the cost?
Right. And we're going to talk today about blast motion, diamond kinetics, Oculus 3D, which I've done some research on, and I really like the 3D part of things. And I have a couple of interesting questions I want to ask you today as it pertains to technology and how we can utilize that technology. But it is interesting. Nobody talks at all about the price of all the things I just mentioned. What is the most expensive, by the way? Is it It would be, probably diamond kinetics, right? No, it would be Oculus, because that's virtual reality and there's a lot of pieces of equipment involved. No?
So TrackMan is,
okay. Do you use TrackMan?
Expensive. We have it for pitching.
Okay.
And then, so I think what's different is there's I think it's just really, I don't know if the equipment is different, but I think the way you use the equipment and the software that you use is different for hitting. But we use it way more for our pitchers. We get a lot more information that's pertinent for our company and for our athletes. But I think that one is going to be the most expensive.
Right. And then there's
a lot of thousands, whereas the other ones are just in the hundreds.
And then there's the Hawkeye, right? That's very similar to TrackMan.
Correct.
I've not had much experience with Hawkeye. I'm assuming it's pretty much the same thing. Maybe it's a little more inexpensive.
I actually don't know. I don't have as much experience with that. But certainly for people who are working a little bit larger scale and you're having to get information and collect data, very fine-tuned data on multiple athletes, I think their software does a very good job with that. And then you're getting the best of both worlds. You're getting the input from the pitcher, and then also what happens after contact gets made, right? So you're starting to try to piece together both what was needed to make that reaction happen.
So, all right, let me ask you, as we get into today's topic, and I do want to mention, I mentioned Jake Epstein. Join Jake and I every Monday, 9 a.m., the Lab Epstein Hitting podcast. This week, we did another edition of Overrated, Underrated, measuring the importance of hitting topics and fundamentals alike. That's the Lab Epstein Hitting podcast, episode 134. Again, new episodes every Monday, 9 a.m. So I'm going to put you on the spot here. Do a little cross promotion on cross functionality. What is the most overrated aspect of hitting? What is the most underrated aspect of hitting? Mind you, you can't say technology. That's not fair. That's cheating.
I think most overrated is, I almost want to say like perfecting swing mechanics. And underrated is competition in the box.
Okay.
It's like competitive mindset in the box.
So what is the most overrated fundamental in your eyes?
Maybe like, okay, I'm going to say separation with a grain of salt here, because I think everyone thinks you should have this massive hip-shoulder separation when you really just need to have it at the perfect time. And so people will hone in and be like, well, you really need to get your hips rotated way more. You really need to get this femoral internal rotation going way more, when it's like, well, you kind of just have to get it like perfect timing, you don't need to get this massive piece of it. So I'm going to say separation, I guess, even though I think it's potentially one of the most important things. It's just the way it's viewed, I think, is very overrated.
So you think one of the more underrated aspects of hitting probably is timing. Nobody ever talks about timing. Good. Everybody seems to forget about that all the time.
Right. You have some people who just naturally time it up.
Mechanics on
mechanics.
Yeah, it's mechanics on Twitter and Instagram, and nobody ever talks about timing, having great timing. Why some of these hitters are some of the best, because they have great timing. Mechanics, I think, come into play when you don't have the greatest timing and you're out in front or something like that, or you're late on a pitch on the inner half and you have to muscle it out to right center if you're a right-handed batter. That's where I think good mechanics come into play. Could be wrong.
No,
I've been wrong before.
If you've played the game, like, how many times have you been like, man, that felt really off, and then you went and you look back to your swing and you're like, well, my swing didn't really look that off.
Right.
Why did it feel so off? You know what I mean? So I do think, if I ask every single hitter that I've ever worked with, would you rather have a perfect swing, but you lack the ability to time up the ball, or would you rather have a swing with flaws with this impeccable timing? And every single time they're like, oh, no, I want the timing. I'm like, great. Let's not work on your perfect top hand position for the outside pitch right now.
Yes. And it makes your job as a coach a lot easier.
Right.
Overrated, underrated, episode 134 this week.
I like it.
If you haven't, we can do it on this program if you'd like to. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe, Apple, Google, Spotify, and watch the show on YouTube, the Lab Epstein Hitting Podcast YouTube page. Thank you very much. Okay, let's get into our topic today, episode 32 of Cross Functionality, when we talk about gizmos and gadgets of hitting, technology involved with baseball and softball, involved with. By the way, how much has the technology taken over in softball? Because it's swept
not
baseball.
As much as baseball. Yeah, it's definitely not as much as baseball, but I was in the same boat, but I don't think I am anymore, where I wanted it to take over more. I wanted so badly to have like a metric profile of like elite hitters, but it's not there, and it's not there for a reason. There will be things I think that bridge this gap, but right now it's very I think you're still getting people who say, okay, well, wait a second, I got girls with mediocre numbers on here, but they're my best hitter. Why is this not adding up?
Yeah, right. And you and I were talking before we started recording about the bat speed, about someone's bat speed and how the metrics don't add up, but then vice versa too with bat quickness. And
I was trying to find it on Twitter because I really wanted to display the information, and I saw it a while ago and I saved it and I couldn't track it down, but it was essentially showcasing the bat profile. So bat speed, bat quickness, angle into the zone, angle out of the zone, of an individual, and how it was these like the perfect metrics you could have wanted. But the outcomes were very low. It was not someone who performed very well come game time. And then you saw this next set of data that was considered mediocre bat metrics, but it was Mookie Betts. And you're like, which batter are you taking? Which one would you rather on your team? So I guess that's, there's so much more to hitting than just the swing. It's kind of like saying, a running back just needs to be fast. So I think it is a big component and it matters, but it's not the end all be all, obviously.
Speaking of softball, there's got to be all the programs though out there, the big time programs that have this type of technology. Like they probably have TrackMan.
I think so. I think
let's text Murph and ask him right now.
TrackMan, I think, is way bigger in baseball right now. I don't know if they have the same. Like Rapsodo has two different technologies, one for baseball, one for softball. I'm not 100% sure if TrackMan has the softball component. They might, and I really apologize if I'm misspeaking, but I remember there had to be different softwares or different pieces of technology for each. So here's the thing with technology in college sports or college softball, at least what I've witnessed is you have coaches who are been coaching for many years. They're very good at recruiting. They're very good at keeping their team together. They're very good at, teaching certain things, but they've been coaching for 10, 15, 20 years and they have all this on their plate. And it's a big learning curve to bring in new technology. And now it's like, okay, well, how do we use it? Great. We have these numbers. Now, what do we do now? So what you're starting to see, I think, is volunteer assistants or player development coaches. They're starting to find ways, maybe not exactly hiring someone on staff or having managers with software backgrounds. And, I think the University of Iowa baseball team has some of the best managers, and they were all like software guys, and they would run all these different like spreadsheets through different algorithms to just try to get numbers to try to help the coaches out. You know what I mean? Because coaches aren't going to be sitting there running all these numbers and knowing what exactly they mean and how they can actually then coach their athletes. So you want to make sure it doesn't become a distraction and just an expensive thing that sits in the corner.
Right. Yeah. So one point I was going to make about softball too. I don't know if you saw the rankings this week. I did. So on Twitter, Oklahoma and Oklahoma State, number 1, number 2. Oklahoma is always good, by the way, in softball.
They've been on this like 10-year streak of just crushing, obliterating people. Yeah, they are fun to watch for sure.
I know. Yeah. What was it like playing against them? I have to ask you, because it just seems it would be like they're one of the more intimidating programs in the country.
Yeah, no, they were. And funny enough, so when we went to play, I remember we played Oklahoma in Oklahoma, right? So we showed up to the game and it looked like it was a sea of crimson because our colors were so similar. And then you'd hear the cheer for them, and I was like, "Oh, dang!"
They probably sell out every game, right?
Yeah. I mean, well, the Oklahoma, where the World Series is like 20 minutes away from their campus.
Right.
So at the final game of the season, it poured, and they had this 3-hour rain delay, and it really cleared out a lot of the stands. And I think that probably helped us a little bit, not having such a skewed fan base disadvantage.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
But we played them 11 years ago, obviously, and they were just such a powerhouse. They weren't ranked number 1 though in the country. I think they were 3 or 4. Yeah. So they weren't as dominant as what we see now, but shoot, since 2013 on, they've just been, nobody stands in their way.
Well, they're the second week in a row that they're ranked number 1. You mentioned they sell out every game. So there's a program. Speaking of, I mean, look, NCAA tournament going on right now with basketball. A lot of those teams that make it, like Furman, for example, their baseball program might get a little bit of a boost. Softball program, boosting money because the tournament bringing in all that money from basketball. Oklahoma, they pay the softball team. They have to pay for themselves because they've been so successful. They sell out. They don't have to need any help from anybody else in the athletic department money wise. They can buy the technology if they want it themselves because they've had so much success in the last 10 years.
I think, and you know what? I think they ran some promotion last year where it was either the Booster Club or I have to look into it. Essentially, anytime that team hit a home run, it was a company donating money towards their new stadium that they're going to get. And so, of course, Oklahoma had the home run leader last year. So they were just, they're entertaining to watch. And it makes you wonder, like, what are they doing differently with hitting that everyone else is missing? But I do remember watching their assistant coach, who their hitting coach is, present gosh, this is like 6-7 years ago now, how they use diamond kinetics and how they implement technology to just help add to that feedback system for the athlete, but how it's really not the end all be all, and how important approach is and how important having a plan is. And, it was just, it was refreshing, I guess. It was more of like, all right, I'm on the right track with my thought process.
Yeah. They develop a really good culture too.
For sure.
It's easier. I feel like sometimes I'm talking out my butt here, so I apologize. But I feel like a lot of times in college, it's easier to create a culture rather than in professional sports. It's a lot harder to do. Like Nick Saban's created a culture. That thing is bulletproof. He could leave tomorrow, and for the next probably 5 to 7 years, whoever the new coach is, they could still be a really good program. I mean, look at Ryan Day. Not trying to take away anything from him from Ohio State. But I mean, that program was built, by Urban Meyer. No matter what you think about Urban Meyer, that culture was built by Urban Meyer, and Ryan Day. Maybe, I don't know, he's benefiting from the fruits of the labor. Now, on the look on the professional side, I'm looking right here in Tampa, right? Bruce Arians leaves, and then Todd Bowles takes over, and it's not exactly the seamless transition they would have hoped. So that's why I kind of make that assumption that, like Oklahoma, for example, their softball team developed a culture over the last 10 years that's really hard to replicate. And it's something that they can just continue on and keep going for years to come.
That is what it seems like. And, sure enough, the head coach's son is the assistant. So I don't know when the head coach Patty Yasso will retire, but I wonder if the son will just continue on and take on that legacy. And yeah, it's that culture pro to college. There is such a distinct difference, and I do often wonder, why buy-in just seems so different at that pro level to the college, and how it does seem a lot easier to mold that culture and just it almost is like those games where it's like this blob that just absorbs anything that comes in contact with. That's what I think of when I think of those really strong culture programs.
Well, Oklahoma's on that list. They probably have a lot of technology that we don't even know about. And again, look, there's no secret. There's a lot of technology that's out there, and there's a lot that could really get people overwhelmed. I understand that. But let's take away the price tag for a second. Mm-hmm. Which piece of technology is your favorite to use with your athletes, just based off their comprehension and your comprehension of all this technology?
Sure. So funny enough, and you just made me think of it, and I didn't even think about it beforehand. This isn't necessarily specific to baseball, softball, but Florida State wins the national championship a few years ago. Coach gets interviewed, and they say, "Hey, what's been the biggest adjustment?" And they said, "It's the Whoop band." And have you heard of the Whoop band, the recovery band that you wear for sleep recovery and all that?
No, I have not. The Whoop band. I'm thinking, I thought of the song like an idiot. The Whoop. There it is.
Yeah. So this is one of the bands, what it looks like. And
I've seen them. Okay.
Yeah. And so what it says is, you go to sleep, it tells you how well you slept, and basically what your recovery is, because you could sleep for 8, 9, 10 hours, but you could have really, really poor recovery because you didn't get enough deep sleep, or you woke up too many times not realizing it, whatever it was. Mm-hmm. And so what she said is that was such an instrumental part for her team, especially once they got to playoffs, they got to see, okay, I'm really fatigued today. You got to see the recovery of the whole team, be like, all right, we can probably only practice for an hour and a half, 2 hours today, not this 4-hour practice I originally planned. And she kind of just used that as a guide. And then they win the national championship, right? So I think if I'm working with an athlete who is trying to get to that next level and is really pushing their body, monitoring recovery is huge, because if you're not doing that, it really kind of doesn't matter what hitting equipment piece you have. But after that, if I'm going to pick my favorite...
Can I ask you really quick though?
Sure.
About the Whoop? I'm
sure.
fascinated by that, because I've seen people wear it. I didn't know what it was called, and I sometimes just out of the corner of my eye, if I noticed it, I think it's like one of the smart watches that everybody has now, which I do not have a smartwatch.
Nice.
I learned a long time ago from a friend who connected his iPad to his iPhone. You would hear the text that would come in, and it would be the double ding, and it was very, very obnoxious. So I've learned I'm not going to connect my phone to anything, and I'm certainly not going to connect it to an Apple Watch. Nevertheless, the Whoop thing. What now? You wear it. It tells you wear it to sleep, so it tells you what kind of sleep you have gotten the night before. What does that look like, and how do you use that to plan your day, or plan an athlete's day based off the kind of sleep they had from the night before? That's very intriguing.
Yeah. So specifically with females, and I can give that example. So specifically with females, our sleep is, whether we like it or not, is going to be dictated based on where we are in our cycle throughout the month. So different hormones get released at different times. Some are going to almost make you extremely sleepy, but your sleep quality is really poor. And then other times your energy levels are going to be much higher, and your sleep quality is going to be way better. So we can kind of manage that. Like if I'm really, really working in depth with an athlete on day-to-day stuff where they are supposed to have a heavy deadlift cycle, and we're supposed to do really specific training with heavy bat, light bat stuff. And I look, and they got a really crappy night's sleep the night before, and they are...
What numbers tell you they had a crappy night's sleep?
Sure. So they'll give like an overall recovery score, right? So like, let's say your recovery score is 65, and I'm like, it's out of 100. It should usually be a little bit better than that. So I can go in and look. And there's something called heart rate variability, which is, you can take that with a grain of salt. It's typically you get like an average, let's say for someone, but when it varies a ton, all of a sudden it's a sign like, okay, maybe are they getting sick? Is there something like, is it beyond, are they really, really stressed? Is it beyond the fact that they just didn't sleep well? And then when you actually go and look at the sleep you get, you can see the difference between REM and deep sleep. So when I used to live in a house by myself, I would get eight hours of sleep, and I would spend less than 45 minutes of it in a deep sleep. It was almost like my body wasn't letting me get into a deep sleep, things like that are interesting. So you want to get to that, closer to that 3 hour, let's say, amount of REM and deep sleep to have both cognitive and physical recovery. Finals week, stressed out, putting yourself through, like, maybe you're maxing out in the weight room and at your high school and I didn't know it. You know what I mean? There's certain variables where all of a sudden your body's going to be very taxed and not fully recovered. And that's going to impact what we end up doing that day.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So before I cut you off, the other question that you're going to answer, what is your favorite piece of technology?
It is the pocket radar right now. It is.
A lot of scouts use that, or starting to use that.
I know it's simple. It is. So there's two different types. There's one that is going to be a little less expensive, and it measures slower miles per hour. So let's say you're trying to measure how hard someone throws a medicine ball. It's perfect for that. If you're trying to do faster miles per hour, that's a little bit more accurate. You're going to want, like, it's called it's the blue colored one. And then there's a ball coach versus a smart coach. The smart coach Bluetooths right to your phone so you can log it, but you don't need that. Technically, like, you could set up the pocket radar and just film the athlete hitting in the background. And, that's, I guess, the cheaper way to do it. But the reason I like it so much is a lot of these pieces of technology are taking into account the swing, but I really want to know the outcome, and I want to know that you found your sweet spot, because you could have awesome miles per hour of your bat and really great bat quickness, but you could hit it off the end of your bat and have really crappy exit velocity. Yeah. So I want to know what your exit velocity is. I think that tells me, okay, we're hitting consistent exit velocity in the right direction. That tells me right away, okay, then we have a lot of good things going on with our swing. And it's also a good baseline. So if that athlete ever gets injured, we know a baseline to go back to. We can see where they're at during different phases of their lifting, making sure it doesn't get too low. They get a new bat, you can measure it again, measure it off tee work, front toss, soft toss, live pitching. It's a very simple thing. So I would say my favorite metric then is exit velocity. My favorite way to measure it is the pocket radar.
Yeah. So through Blast, through Diamond Kinetics, through Pocket Radar, through Oculus, talk about all of that in just a second. As a coach, I've always been fascinated with your guys' ability to extend the bandwidth of your learning capacity. How are you able, with all this new technology being almost just thrust into your face, how are you able to constantly evolve with this technology and learn this new technology?
I think it's going to depend on different times of the year. Certainly during busy seasons, if someone comes in with a piece of technology that I realize has a little bit of a learning curve for it to make sense, I know myself right now, and I say, I'm going to put this on the back burner, even though there's like this itch and this burn that's like, well, what if it's really good? I could use it right now. You know what I mean? But I do think it's going to take some time. I've used both Diamond Kinetics and Blast. And to be honest, 5 years ago or 4 years ago, the only reason I think I wanted to pick one to just be consistent with it and get to really know one product. And I think the only reason I went with Blast is because there was one research article that came out that showed that backed up its reliability. This is my dog Moose. He's usually not in here. He's in here today.
Who?
This is Moose. Come here, bud.
Moose.
He's been quiet all morning, and of course, right when we start the podcast, he starts moving around.
How old is Moose? Is jacked.
Moose is about 11 years old. He is. He's a strong pup.
What kind of breed are we talking?
You know what? He was 6 years old when I rescued him, and he's a mix. So he looks maybe Ridgeback or something, but
isn't it? Do people come up to you like just randomly when you're walking your dog and just want to pet the dog?
Yes, and I actually, especially because I didn't have him he's a friendly dog and he's great, but there are 6 years of his life I don't know, and he's an older dog. Like I just always tell people that it's probably not a good idea.
I'm one of those people who just walks up to random dogs and just pets them. And I get some people love it, and other people give me a look like, what are you? But then when I've noticed too that me being, with the dog, I think that I assume that people absolutely love petting dogs and just love dogs. And there are some people legitimately that when I'm walking the dog that go to the other side of the street, or they try to circle away because they just don't like dogs. And I'm under this assumption that everybody loves dogs for whatever reason. I don't know. It's just
I had such friendly, like you can do anything to this dog. We got him at 6 months old growing up, like, and I had this perception too, like, oh, all dogs are great, but it has been a challenge. Moose was in shelter care for 3 years. They don't know where he came from before that, but he is not, I don't think he had the best first few years of his life. And so it's like, this is a little bit more of like a dog you have to be careful with. And I've never experienced that. So it's certainly, it's different.
Well, there's any lesson that people should learn today is that not everybody loves dogs.
Not everyone loves dogs, and not all dogs love all humans all the time. Some dogs are scared of humans.
That's true. I mean, I'm not a big cat person. I don't like cats. I guess cat owners assume that everybody loves cats, but I don't. I don't really like cats at all.
Dogs and cat people.
Yes, there's a difference. There's this difference, and there's a line that you draw right down the middle, in my opinion. I don't ever understood the people, by the way, who have both dogs and cats. You know, you might as well just ruin your life at that point.
You are looking at one.
Well,
I said you're looking at one.
No, I know.
When I moved in with Moose, my fiance had a couple cats.
All right, so then I don't know how you do it.
We coexist. Okay. It took a long time. They don't live in the same room. The cats live outside most of the
time. So Moose and the cat in your house, they don't ever interact.
No.
Wow. Well, how do you? I mean, by accident you have to like bump into each other.
Yeah. I mean, every now and then we'll have some close calls, but Moose is not. I don't know what Moose would do if he got to that cat. I don't think Moose is fast enough to get to the cat, but if he did, it wouldn't be good.
How much does Moose weigh? He doesn't look like he's fleet of foot.
80 pounds.
Okay, yeah, he's not exactly fleet of foot.
No, he's older.
All right.
Anyway, what I was saying is the only reason I went with Blast over Diamond Kinetics at the time was just a couple of research articles that had come out that proved not that Diamond Kinetics wasn't as accurate, just that Blast was. It was starting to come up that Blast was accurate, and I just picked one, but I think they're both tremendous, and I don't think necessarily right now you can go wrong with one over another. If you want something that's going to track every swing you're taking, and if you're going to be diligent enough to track when you're doing a drill versus when you're hitting off the tee versus, when you're doing something different, then there's certainly a home for that. I don't use that nearly as much with my hitters because in group settings, unless everybody has their own device, it just really slows the session down for me more than anything. But for the handful of hitters I do have, that are interested in it, it works really well for them.
Okay,
COVID, it was amazing.
Right. I'm sure. Okay. So then which tech do you think is the best for athletes between, I'll list off these because there's a lot out there, but I'll list off what I call like probably the big four: Blast, Diamond Kinetics, Oculus, which I love Oculus. You can't go wrong with virtual reality. And you really can't. And then Pocket Radar, which you've talked well about.
I
love Oculus. I'm sorry. I love the virtual reality part.
Okay, so if you're planning, like, so Oculus itself is like a video game unit. It's like PlayStation or it's like Xbox, right? So if you're going to use it for other things, it's not that daunting of a price tag, right? Do I think it's going to take you from being a bad hitter to a great hitter? No, I don't think any of these technologies will do that. Will it help us maybe fight for that to become a little bit better? Sure, I think that's definitely a possibility. What I like is I've had hitters with such difficult time visualizing, like to just get in the box and close their eyes and try to visualize a pitch coming at them. They've had such a difficult time with it. And so I've really liked that VR to just help hitters get to that point, help them visualize a little bit more. And we'll have it as a station in the cage and they love it. They get really competitive with it. And that to me is so important. So it has checked a lot of boxes for me. Has it improved everyone's bat speed? Maybe not, but has it helped them in other ways? Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So based off all this technology, how do you put together a player development plan from the metrics and the information that this technology just spit out?
So I like to use it as monitoring first, meaning I'm going to train this athlete as if I didn't have it, but kind of just be aware of what these numbers are. And I'll do that for maybe 1 to 2 weeks, and maybe longer, maybe not. But I'm just kind of looking and I'm saying, okay, on days that they're lifting, this is what their exit velo looks like. On days that they're the day after they're lifting, this is what their numbers are looking like. When they come off of a weekend of playing, I'm just trying to gain an idea of like general understanding of kind of where they're at. And what that helps me do is it's like, okay, is this confirming what I saw with my eyes as a coach? And then really, to be honest, like it's from there. It's every now and then that I'll bring technology into the cage. I try not to do it every single time because I don't want to be too fogged by it. Just like I don't want to become too arrogant to the point where I think I don't need another, it can be a third eye for a lot of coaches. So I do bring it in every now and then, but for that first little bit, I'm kind of just monitoring and wondering, okay, where's this hitter at? Where's this hitter at? Is this in line with what I would be doing? Is the technology telling me anything different?
It's amazing that hitter, that we talk about players being inundated too much with technology. It's amazing coaches aren't more inundated. You mentioned the fog there. I don't know how you guys are able to sift through all of this information and still be able to coach. It seems like a lot of times, in a lot of cases, it would be very overwhelming because there is so many metrics that are available to you, even if you know the systems inside and out.
What I would, because I've thought about this a lot. Like, I think the way I use technology is certainly governed by the way my business runs. So I don't have a team that I work with consistently over long periods of time. Even individual athletes, they'll book their sessions, right? And I'll see them once every now and then. If I had, let's say, 12 to 15 girls that I was just focusing on, maybe I would pursue a blast. And maybe I could so see myself probably saying, okay, based on the lowest tier of bat speed or exit velocity, they're going to be strictly on a bat speed like dominant program. And then people who are really struggling with consistency, like just their numbers are all over the place, every swing looks different. Well, maybe I'm going to put them on a little bit more of like a rewire program to get in tune with their mechanics a little bit more. But then I think in that same breath, I would take a step away and be like, would I have done that anyway? Would that have been something I would have been able to see anyway? And so, that's I think like where you just start to look a little bit deeper. When I went down with the Pirates, I was expecting them to be technologied up the wall, and they were like, yeah, well, sometimes. And I was like, oh, so it was a very neat conversation where it wasn't the end all be all when it comes to hitting. That you have the metric that pitchers will deliver faster speeds, better spin rates, and all these different things that will all of a sudden lead to better outcomes for them. And that's not, we haven't found that yet with hitting. That's all.
Yeah. Well, be sure to follow us on social media, Twitter, Instagram at Jim Tara, Twitter at Coach Cassie RB, Instagram at Coach _ Cassie RB. What's it on the background? Hold on. What's it say there? Oh, it's that's the Instagram one on under your name at Coach _ Cassie RB. I should put in parentheses IG Instagram.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah. Anyway, okay. So with all of this technology mentioned, this is like the question of the show for you.
Okay.
I want you to get ready, cat lady. Okay. I'm just kidding, of course. How can players in the Northeast players, cold climate players, listen up now. This is for you. Softball and baseball. Those players, colder weather climates, how can they use this technology to level up against players who have the opportunity to play in warmer weather climates, Florida, California, Arizona, Nevada? Is that warm weather climate? Texas?
Yeah.
How can those players level up against the cold weather climate players against the warmer weather climate players who play all year round and they actually get that in-game experience?
I don't know if you ever can. I don't think a piece of technology is going to replace it. I think
don't tell Chat GPT that though.
I think the next thing I'd say is to save money on technology and go fly to a camp.
Yeah,
in the warmer weather climates.
Go. That's right. Just save money, fly to Florida, and play.
Yeah, right. There's nothing that's going to replace playing in a live game.
No.
So with that though being said, if we're gonna say that these warmer weather athletes have the advantage because they are facing live pitching more than we are, maybe the Oculus is the best thing. You know what I mean? Maybe virtual reality is the way to go.
That's right.
Got
something right finally. 32 episodes in, I finally got something right. I got the open right, and I got the right technology. Oculus virtual reality.
What I am curious about, and there's again, research is coming out to try to be like, okay, can we validate this? Can we say that like you hitting off an Oculus more often is going to lead to you seeing a curveball better come game time? Or is it really just going to improve our timing? Like maybe is it just going to help us? Like I used to sit in front of a TV and watch pitchers, and I would sit with my bat in my batter's hands and practice my timing. How different is that? Like, so I wonder, I'm super intrigued by it. I'm curious what the research is going to say in the future. Is it going to make someone who can't hit live pitching all of a sudden be able to hit live pitching? No. Is it maybe going to make you a little less rusty once you do start to play against live pitching? Maybe. Perhaps.
You're right. I'm just amazed that there's all this new technology and you can't figure out a true way to level up. They can't. The people who make this technology, not the coaches, of course. But no, nothing replaces playing outside.
There's just something to seeing live pitching. There really is as a hitter.
Even if you try to do it indoors, seeing live pitching, it doesn't
different.
Work. Lighting's different.
It is. It's different. And then you add like, just let's say you get to play a game and you get 3 at bats with 3 different pressure situations. Even nobody on, nobody out is a different pressure situation that like is not the same as me throwing you front toss. I can do all the things that I'm trying so hard to do as a coach to emulate it. It just would not be the same.
Yeah. All right. Well, email us, jimbopodcast21@gmail.com. If you have any questions, concerns, whatever, email us, jimbopodcast21@gmail.com. And again, reach out on social media, Twitter @Jim Tara, Instagram, same thing, Twitter @Coach Cassie RB, Instagram @Coach_Cassie RB. Reach out to us, ask us questions, and we will bring them to the table here. All right. Next week, episode 33, we're going to dissect what to do when you have mechanical flaws as a hitter. And basically coaching yourself, being able to coach yourself.
Yes. A new way of doing it is what we call feeding the mistake. So
that's the title of next week's show, correct? Episode 33.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So who coined that phrase, feeding the mistake?
I heard it. I'm not going to remember the researcher's name. I heard it at the Pirates camp. But it came from a particular researcher. I will have it for next week though.
Okay.
I will. Make sure
just like you promised that you'd have that tweet for this week.
Well, that was
bookmark.
I will do that next time.
No, I'm lecturing you about bookmarking. I want to be completely clear with the audience. I just learned how to bookmark a tweet this week, so I am no better. So next week we're going to find out who came up with feeding the mistake.
Yes.
That term, and we're going to talk about feeding the mistake as a hitter next week. All right. Any questions? Again, jimbopodcast21@gmail.com. Thank you for listening and watching, and we will talk to you